Good afternoon. I'm actually joined with Rob Littlefair, and Rob is the program manager for our program that I'm going to talk about this afternoon. And I think there's some fantastic parallels actually between our journey in working with the AMSCI scheme and the proving factory. I think actually though we're coming at it from two totally different perspectives. Theirs being an entirely new entity and business, and ours being a 153-year-old engineering company of Yorkshire, and very proud to be it. So hopefully this will move on. If I click it, we'll click this one instead. Right. So David Brown, as I mentioned, 153 years old, and well reputed and a global name in tractors. But also known for owning Aston Martin for many, many years, as well as Vosper Thornycroft and other such companies. But throughout that 153-year history, David Brown has very much enjoyed a mastery of gear making. And we're probably the most comprehensive company manufacturing gears anywhere in the world. We're still present on 5 continents, manufacturing gears, anything from 14 meters in diameter down to very tiny gears that you might see on the space shuttle type applications. What I'm going to do is just give you a bit of background actually to our core capability and David Brown and what we're about. And then our entry into the wind energy market, which was a business I set up in 2009, so fairly new for an old business. And then to talk about particularly our entry into offshore wind, which is a big opportunity for the UK. And a really big opportunity for UK manufacturing if we can find a way to make that entry happen. And then we'll talk more about the bid and why we think we might have been successful. So David Brown, why do we win as a company? Well, we win where companies and customers are looking for solutions that demand an absolute assurance, where the product, our gear making product, has to be a fit and forget solution. It simply has to work. And you see some examples on here. On the far right-hand side, top right, we have the transmission for an aircraft carrier. You can see a person stood actually towards the top of the photo there. So you can see just how big that is. It's 260 tons. It has to be fully repaired in situ. It simply has to work. If there's a problem, it's maybe 12 months in a dry dock to sort out. So it just simply has to work. Equally, nuclear submarines, if there's a problem with a nuclear submarine transmission, you cannot get the gear out. So you have to figure it out inside the application. And we've long served the defence industry, and this is part of our story also. Every tracked vehicle in the British Land Defence Force has a David Brown transmission, as does every surface ship with a mechanical transmission in the Navy, and indeed every submarine in the fleet, which is tremendous news for us, and we've enjoyed growth through that sector over many, many years. But as you will all know, that is not a sector particularly that is delivering a lot of growth right now. We also have a competence not only in designing transmissions for very demanding circumstances, but also in looking after that asset for a period of many years. And indeed, the land defence equipment may be operating for some 50 years or so. And during that time, it may be required to be upgraded and repaired, etc. And so we have a competence and a core capability in understanding exactly how we need to change and adapt our gearing to suit new applications, or in the case of armoured personnel carriers, for example, upgrading horsepower because there's more body armour onto those vehicles nowadays. So we're very good at understanding how a transmission's been used, where its design is weak or vulnerable, and how to upgrade or improve it. And I'll come back to that capability in a short while. Actually, if you look at our business, it's in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire, and we have a facility that's 106 years old. We have machines that are maybe 30 years old. And so if a business is coming to look at us as a customer, what are they actually looking for? I can tell you it's not the facilities and it's not the machine tools, it's this asset here. It's our workforce, and in 2007, when I picked up the business with some 350 people, half of the workforce had worked there for 25 years, 43 people had worked there for 40 years, and 2 people had worked there for 50 years. Now, actually, I'd prefer to have that circumstance than the other way around, because I can buy machine tools, I can buy a factory, it might be a lot of effort to do all of those things, but I cannot go and buy that capability. And the clever thing that we have to do is think about what is that capability, what does it represent, and what can it do for us. And really our move into this market was about leveraging that capability. So wind energy, in 2009, we took a look at this sector, encouraged by our chairman to go and look at sectors that are growing. Of course, it's easier to sell something to a market that's growing than it is to somebody where the market is declining. And we looked at wind energy, and we were quite quickly told that the big headache in that market was that gearboxes don't work in wind turbines. Anywhere between 6 and 10 years, there's a failure in a wind turbine due to electrical system or a gearbox. And this makes the cost of energy not what it should be. And indeed, many people in the industry have turned away from gearbox-driven wind turbines to more direct drives. But for a company that's been making this type of product for 153 years in applications where they don't fail, this is rather a naive assumption in our opinion. So I launched a business, first of all, in aftermarket services to do post-warranty inspection work of all existing wind turbines before the gearboxes of our competitors were going out of warranty. A very handy business for learning an awful lot about why these things have problems and what the difficulties and issues are. And pretty quickly after that, I launched a repair business, as you probably would assume that we would do, but more importantly then upgrading. And now we enjoy, some 3 years later, we enjoy global contracts with Vestas, Nordex, GE, one or two other companies, where they're looking for a sophisticated provider, providing that kind of repair and upgrade service all over the world. So that's just an attitude of mind, actually, because our workforce probably 4 or 5 years ago would have said, there's nothing new in gearboxes, there's no new markets to sell to. But just looking at our core capability and applying it in that new sector has driven quite a tremendous change. We also launched a joint venture producing new gearboxes in China for the onshore market. But most importantly, I think we started to say how we could serve this new offshore wind sector in the UK. And the fact that with these very large wind turbines that are being installed out 10 miles plus out to sea, the consequences of failure are extremely high. And the solution simply has to be fit and forget. And there have to be products that are fully maintainable in situ. So that plays very much to our capability. And we set up a design effort to attract potential customers from outside Europe who are looking to have a European supply chain, a UK supply chain even, and who are looking for differentiation in the design. And we could bring ideas from the defence sector and the other sectors we operate in to help them have a very differentiated design. And we found Samsung, the big industrial giant of Korea, and we started working with them in a very collaborative way to design a gearbox for their offshore wind turbine, the first of which will be installed in Scotland in about 3 months' time. And just to give you a feel for that, one of these big offshore wind turbines will stand about as high as the Gherkin. The blade diameter is 172 meters in diameter of this particular turbine. This is a power station. It's really a power station, not the kind of things you might see out on the hills. And what we designed for this product was a very, very innovative gearbox that is, in relative terms, very compact and modular. I say in relative terms, it's 3 meters in diameter by 3.5 meters in length. But in terms of the size of the turbine, it's very small. And indeed, critically, in terms of our competition, this is a highly compact product. It's very modular, so it can come apart very easily for any kind of maintenance, and any part of it can be maintained in the turbine itself. It's very lightweight in relative terms, 15% or so lighter than any of our competitors' type of products. And it's designed with some clever IPR that means it will perform with great efficiency and reliability, and we've tested it as so. And so when we've calculated it through, we can see that we would offer our customers a 5% or so cost of energy reduction, which is quite something when you consider we're a small component in a fairly large system. So a lot of competitive advantage that we've been able to offer. And indeed, from that, we've been going through the prototyping phase. We've produced our prototypes. And there's really 3 phases of our development. The first is to design and manufacture a prototype, and indeed design and manufacture the test rig that you can see here, all of which were done in 11 months. And we've tested that product and now demonstrated its capabilities on a test rig. We now move to the next stage, which is critical for us, which is productionization. So it's great being able to produce one or two, but probably one of the issues that UK manufacturing faces now very much is how good are we in real serial production? A lot of specialist engineering companies like ours are really good making 1 or 2 or 10, but can we make 200? Can we make 400 and 500? And so that's the phase we're very much at now, trying to make sure we've got supply chain capability, make sure that that supply chain is ready, and that we can produce with efficient serial manufacture. And it's quite critical that we're able to do this because actually when we look today at the UK supply chain for wind energy, we find that there's very few companies engaged in it. We're very pleased to say that we've got nearly 30 companies in our supply chain that are UK companies that are getting involved in this industry for the very first time. And this is a vehicle through which they can demonstrate and prove references. Once we've done that and we've got a way of producing this thing with efficiency through our own assembly facility and indeed our supply chain, then we can start thinking about producing coastal facilities to actually manufacture these things in really big volume. So the actual AMSCI bid is dealing with that second development phase, the productionization. And it really splits into 3 sections. The first is to put a pilot assembly cell in place for building together these products. The first prototypes, as you might be able to see from a few of the picture here, was built using scaffolding and all sorts of weird and wonderful things, and took maybe 1,200 hours or so to assemble one of these gearboxes. And we need to be able to do it in about 25% of that time with tooling that's very appropriate for that purpose and that's safe and ensures we produce with the highest quality every time. So we have a pilot assembly cell project that will enable us to be able to do those things. And that brings in supply chain partners to us that are not directly in the product supply chain, but maybe in the supply chain of manipulative fixtures, that kind of thing, which for a 60-ton gearbox will be quite something. Then on the supply chain side, we have a work stream focused on working with our UK suppliers and helping raise our and our suppliers' process capability so that it is suitable for serial production for this sector, and to ensure that we have readiness in the supply chain and that we've got systems integration through the way we work together. And then lastly, we have certain supply chain partners who have their own specific capability investments that they need to make, be it in new furnaces, for heat treatment and also for casting, where they're trying to get up to a physical size that they can produce. And this has been, for those SMEs, a good umbrella by which we can help promote their investment requirements. And you can imagine through all of these projects, there's a lot of IPR and innovation that is required to be able to do something of this scale. And the other common theme that runs through them all is there's a lot of upskilling required and training required. There's a large proportion of this funding that will help us with specific training down through our supply chain. So as I mentioned, the project, maybe it's going to come up there as a separate thing. No, it's not. I'm going to go back. So the project, actually, I should mention, is a £28 million private sector investment in order to complete this project. And the funding we're receiving through the AMSCI scheme is £6.3 million for going towards those work streams. We have 2 universities involved, the University of Nottingham and the University of Huddersfield, and then partners across the other key areas. So 2 logistics and manipulation partners, 2 on the product supply chain and 2 on the process supply chain side of things, as well as then having an umbrella involvement of those 28 or so sub-suppliers in the chain. So why was collaboration for us a really good thing to do through this process? Actually, it was a necessity. We, in order to meet this particular market opportunity, had to move really quickly. And we needed the best expertise we could lay our hands on. And And for us, that meant reaching out to universities. It meant reaching out to the supply chain partners who understand what they do much better than we ever would. So we can't do it on our own. And recognizing that we can if we leverage that expertise, we can move a lot faster. And indeed, that brings the broader perspective that we need, and it means we can move fast. There's one thing about our customer partner, who we've got the strong collaboration with, is they like to move very fast. They believe there's competitive advantage in being able to put their world record-sized wind turbine out to demonstrate very quickly. And then it also means for all of us who, relative to a Samsung, are fairly small businesses, that we can share the investments and share the risk. And that's often critical with a project of this nature. And the benefits for the partners that we have working on this is much needed entry and references in this wind sector. I think UK companies, industry bodies and the government all recognise that the UK doesn't have a supply chain in this sector. And some of the partners, I must say, actually are currently not in our supply chain, but they want to get into the wind supply chain, and they'd like to be supplying us, but they need better capability, and that's why we've said, no, we'll work with you, we'll help you build the capability, and we'll work together. And through that, we'll build new IPR, and we'll raise and demonstrate our capability. And it will give us all the cost reduction that we need to achieve in order to be sustainable at serial production and to de-risk supply. So it's been a really key thing for us, having this partnership. And I think this leads on to the common messages that were given from the last presentation. And it also feeds through to how long does it take to put a bid together. What makes a bid successful? I would contend it starts with already having a clear vision of what it is you're trying to do and a clear ambition. For us, we didn't see a funding opportunity and try and construct something for it. We have a clear mission. Our partnership with our suppliers and our partners is already a clear mission. And if it wasn't through this scheme, which is ideally suited for what we're trying to do, we would be looking for something else to help us because we were on this mission. And with that, I heard different people say, how long does it take to put together an application? Well, this application, with the number of partners we have, took us less than a month to put together. And it wasn't that we had the technical documents ready to submit to any scheme. We didn't have any of that. We knew what we were doing, so we had the clear vision and ambition. That was the important thing. And we knew we had innovation in what we were doing, and we had a collaboration. And it was great to be able to, through this scheme, help all of the partners in that kind of way. There is a need to have a clear lead partner role, and I think we're coming to understand what that actually means. Because I think we're very fortunate to have had experience through other funding rounds, so RGF and other schemes, and I think that is quite important for the lead partner, if at all possible, because it helps us understand exactly which aspects of the application and other stages of the process we're going to have to navigate on behalf of all of the people in our consortium. Resources are quite key. We, as a lead partner, are having to put in resources to administer and to manage those things. Not too onerous, but we have to accept that that's what we need to do. And part of our role is this coordination, first of all through the application, which for us wasn't too much of an issue, through due diligence, which again I don't think's too much of an issue, but through the project, I think we're realising is going to be quite a challenge to do that. I think as the other presentation highlighted, actually when you're doing this with other commercial bodies, they have their own boards to satisfy, they have their own decision-making processes, they're not physically always in the same location, so there's quite a lot more coordination than you might think in the first instance. I think it is key to have a UK sector strategy linkage, and for us, we were very fortunate, of course, offshore wind is a key sector strategy already, and the UK government is very keen to see UK supply chain enter this sector. But I think it's important for this, I think there's 10 sector strategies, and they're all being described very clearly now, and it's important to reference those. And then a point that I think Laura made this morning is advanced manufacturing doesn't necessarily mean space-aged. A lot of the kind of things, moving really big stuff that we're trying to do aren't particularly space-aged advanced engineering, but there's some very clever thinking needs to go into how we do those things. So don't be deterred by the term advanced manufacturing. So I think that's covered everything that I wanted to cover. Hopefully you've got an appreciation for the David Brown journey as well, which I'm very passionate to tell, because I think it's important that some of these older British manufacturing and engineering companies do start to plot their course into new sectors and new growth opportunities, and I think we're hopefully an example to one or two others. So thanks very much for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll take the easy ones and Rob will take the difficult ones. Thank you.